We have finally made it to Friday. That's good news every week, but it is especially good news this week. Hey, everybody, I'm Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans presented by Kroger. We are one day away from G-Day. Tomorrow it goes down. Forecast even looks a little better now than it probably did a couple of days ago, although I am not a weather expert. You should check your local listings for your own feelings on that. A lot to do today. Governor Kemp going to be with us later on. He's excited about G-Day as well. He's also going to tell us his feelings about just how normal the college football season could look this fall. Tailgating, fans in the stands, and everything else that goes along with that. We'll do that. Jeff Sentell stopping by to give us an idea of who will and won't be at G-Day on Saturday from a recruiting standpoint. And I'm also going to squeeze this in with Jeff there as well. A pretty big name has decided he wants out of his letter of intent for the 2021 class, and a Georgia player has mentioned this on social media. What does it all mean? We'll talk about that. So it's a busy, busy show. G-Day preview off the top. Good to have you with us. DawgNation Daily, daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Kroger, begins right now.
Today's episode of DawgNation Daily is brought to you by Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
If I could think of one word that probably sums up the feeling of many Georgia fans as you head towards G-Day in any year, it's probably the word impatience, right? I mean, I would say that the lack of patience is a defining quality and a defining characteristic of a lot of college football fans just in general, and there's a few different ways in which the typical impatience of a Georgia football fan shows up ahead of G-Day. First of all, there's like this just excruciating wait at the end of the last season to get to the next season. For those of us who are college football obsessives, that offseason always just feels way too long. And by the time you get to the spring point in G-Day, people are just starving for any college football. They're just dying to see something. And so G-Day sort of arrives at the time in which people almost, and I'm, if you're not a huge college football fan, you may laugh at this, but for many of us, this is the way it comes. We're just so eager to see something related to college football that this is just kind of our nice quick fix. It's like that snack you eat when you're so hungry you can't really stand it. Just a nice bite-sized snack of college football on Saturday for G-Day to hopefully tide us over until we get into the, summertime where the preseason chatter really builds up and the actual season begins there in the fall. But it's not just that kind of impatience. There's also the impatience of, hey, I've been hearing all these whispers. And I thought it was really funny. Nick Saban yesterday, how do you know so-and-so's had a good spring? I'm sure Kirby Smart sometimes wants to do the same thing with some of us of, how is it that you think so-and-so's had a great spring? Every now and then you'll hear, sports writer go, blah, blah, blah. It's had a great spring thus far. There's impatience to hear and to see with our own eyes the eyewitness account that backs up the expert testimony we've supposedly been getting, based on what's been happening behind closed doors, spring practice, media not getting to see that because of this coronavirus time. You're left to put your ear to the ground and just see what the rumor mill, tells you. And listen, I got no problem, listening to the rumor mill. That's, kind of what we do around here, and we enjoy doing that. But there's this impatience to see on Saturday, is it going to actually be backed up? What I think I've been told, do I see that with my own eyes? And, folks are obviously, dying to do that. Then there's this. And this is probably more true for a program like Georgia than it is maybe other places. There's so much young talent, and the roster at Georgia, even without kind of achieving end-of-season goals the last couple of years, is still deeper than it's ever been before. So you've got talented players, some who've played a lot, but you've got really talented players who've kind of been slotted behind maybe other players, and there's always going to be impatience at Georgia for finding out how good this guy is that I haven't seen as much of as I'd like to. How good is that guy going to be? Is he going to be as good as I've heard he is? Is he going to be as good as Jeff Sentell has told us he is when Jeff's running his recruiting stories and things like that? Is this going to go down? Are these guys, going to be as good as I think they're supposed to be based on all the buzz and the chatter that's kind of existed around them? And that's just kind of the defining characteristic of fans. Fans are just impatient. I think the spring game brings a lot of that impatience kind of to the forefront. You notice that maybe more so than you otherwise would. It is fair to point out, though, sometimes the actual players themselves are a lot less impatient than that. The actual players themselves sometimes are a lot more willing to just kind of let things play out, things unfold. And as far as like this really accelerated timeline that we always want to be on, sometimes players themselves don't quite have the same kind of thing going on. I'll give you an example of this. I thought it was a very revealing press conference the other day with Georgia running back Kendall Milton. Milton has always been a good talker. One of the reasons why I was so impressed with him, in addition to his game film, going back to his time in California as a high school guy, like as a junior in high school, before his senior year, before all of that, certainly before he became a UGA commit. Some of the interviews I had heard Milton do, including with our Jeff Sentell, he was just, such a, well-spoken, kind of sharp, thoughtful guy, and he had his first press conference as a Georgia running back on Saturday. And to go back to the theme of impatience here for a moment, Georgia fans are dying to see so much on display on Saturday, and Milton's one of the guys that Georgia fans are ready to see more of. And they kind of wonder in some cases, like, why haven't we seen more already? Because that's just kind of the way that it goes. But it is fair to point out that Kendall is a lot more patient, it would seem, than the average Georgia fan as far as when he's going to explode and have his big breakout moment. Kendall very introspective about all of this. It's nice. It's kind of a nice reminder of maybe the way that a lot of players approach another big stage to be on Saturday with G-Day, and certainly then the season to come after that. This is Kendall Milton.
For me, one thing that I've kept in mind, everybody has their time. God has their time for everything to happen. So, when it's my time to cross that end zone, then it's my time. But until then, just keep working every day and just trying to be the best person back I can be.
So Kendall Milton says everybody's got their time. I'm going to kind of wait my time. God's got a plan for me. I'm going to let that come to fruition in sort of its perfect timeline. And I think it's really nice to be able to hear, Kendall say that. And I think as far as that represents what other Georgia players might feel, I think that's all really good there as well. I think that's really nice stuff from Kendall Milton. And I think it does hopefully set the stage for Georgia fans in terms of what Saturday is going to really be like. Because you can really kind of divide the Georgia roster in probably like in two halves right now, or maybe not exactly half on both sides, but two groups, and each Georgia player would go into one of these two groups. You have Georgia players who are ready for their moment right now, and you have Georgia players who are setting themselves up for a moment in the near future. Maybe it's the 2022 season, whatever else, but there's kind of equal interest about, hey, who's ready to do it right now and who's ready to do it, in future seasons, but ready to give us a glimpse of that on Saturday at G-Day. And listen, yesterday we did Cover 4 Live, and I was kind of joking with some of our DawgNation colleagues there, Mike Griffith, Connor Riley, Jeff Sentell. They were all a little bit skeptical of how much we truly would see on Saturday. And listen, I've told you all this before. In terms of what the spring game means for the overall outlook for Georgia for any upcoming year, we'll talk about 2021 right now. I never view this as an extraordinarily important data point. I just sort of see it as entertainment. I just sort of see it as I said off the very top of the program here today, for those college football fans who are just starved for a chance to see something that looks like college football, this is something that looks like college football. So for those Georgia fans, to kind of go back to what Milton was saying before, or what we were saying leading into the Milton quote there before, impatient to see the guys who are going to be the big contributors right now, you may see some of that on Saturday, but let's face it, Jermaine Burton's still coming back from injury right now. Kenny McIntosh, one of the guys who's going to be a part of that running back situation, he's a little banged up at the moment. Big-time defensive players, Nakobe Dean is not playing in this game on Saturday. Guys like Adam Anderson, Nolan Smith won't be able to tackle quarterbacks to the ground, so what you hope they're doing, because of the rules of the scrimmage, of course, so what you hope they're doing against DJ Uiagalelei and Clemson week 1, they're not going to be doing that to JT Daniels and the other Georgia quarterbacks here on this Saturday. So some of what you want to see this upcoming season for Georgia, maybe not quite, going to see as much of that. But that doesn't mean the game itself won't be a ton of fun to watch. As I said before, the other category of players here, the category of guys who are about to have their moment, are going to be a part of Georgia's future. I mean, think about the quarterback situation beyond JT Daniels. How fascinating is that for Saturday? Think about some of these 2020, 2021 signees. You haven't seen maybe as much of them as you want, but these are guys who are auditioning for a bigger moment. Think about the buzz that we've heard for some of these wide receivers that maybe you didn't quite expect to hear. A guy like Adonai Mitchell, who Terrence Edwards has bragged on. I mean, how curious are you to see what he brings to the table on Saturday? How much do you want to see what gets validated by someone like Justin Robinson, who's been praised for having a good spring thus far? What he's able to go out there and provide. So listen, the bottom line for me on all of this is there is an impatience from Georgia fans to see everything they want to see on Saturday. Some of it you may see, some of it you may not, but I still sort of get the impression that it's all going to be a ton of fun. Now let me shift gears and do something completely different here for a moment, because I think there's a lot of confusion out there right now, and I want to try to do my part to address some of this, and I'm being serious about this. So the game is not on what I would call like regular cable television on Saturday. Many of you are aware of that. It's the SEC Network Plus. But here's the thing that you should understand is that a good many of you, even if you haven't tried to do this yourself, a good many of you are going to be able to actually watch this on your television screen. I'm going to take like 2 seconds to kind of address all of this because I do think this is kind of important. I actually played around with this morning. Now I have one of those remotes, and I'll show you this on the screen here. I have one of these remotes where you can like do the voice remote thing. I'm not going to give free plug on this, but I do have one of those like voice remote deals here. And so by just simply saying SEC Network Plus into my voice remote, I go and I have all the options available of all the streaming SEC programming, which, by the way, includes Georgia and Kentucky and baseball here this weekend, softball there as well. And then you keep scrolling, and eventually you find Georgia's G-Day. You simply click on that, and then you're able to pull it up, and obviously if it was 2 p.m. on Saturday, you'd be able to go out there and you'd be able to watch that. Now, if you don't have that kind of voice remote situation, a lot of you can just simply access the internet through your TV, and you can go to the link at georgiadogs.com or the link at espn.com or wherever else and kind of access the programming in much the same way. And then, by the way, that's not even without hooking up like a Roku or an Apple TV or something like that. You may have heard it said that this is somehow some sort of extra cost, a pay-per-view type thing. ESPN does have a pay-per-view service, but this is not it. So if you've already got the ESPN subscription or the SEC Network subscription, you can watch this game, and many of you will be able to watch it there on your TV there as well. I'm not super techie. I was able to find it fairly easy, able to get it up on my TV screen fairly easy, and I would invite you to kind of play around with much of the same stuff. So I will certainly admit that it's not as convenient as just simply clicking over the SEC Network and watching it that way. There are a few more clicks you have to do to get there. But if you're already a cable subscriber, you should have access to this, and you should be able to watch it there on your TV screen. And it may be frustrating to have like this game on SEC Network Plus, but just generally speaking, the SEC Network Plus is actually a pretty valuable resource for SEC fans. I mean, it's way easier to follow Diamond Dogs baseball than it would have been years ago, or Lady Dogs basketball, things like that. You have access to a lot of these SEC sporting events. So I'm probably like you, kind of wish the game was on regular television on Saturday. It will be again throughout the week, and it's not a commercial for the SEC Network. I mean, honestly, I'm not really quite sure why they didn't just put the thing on the regular TV. But for those of you who've been kind of worried that you can't get it, if you're already a cable subscriber, you should be able to. And if you're at least as tech savvy as I am, which I guarantee you 95% of our audience is, if not more so than that, then you have a very good chance of also kind of putting up there on your TV screen there as well. So a little public service announcement to get things started here today. My name's Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented today by Kroger, and glad to have you with us no matter how you get to us today. Live on video, 10 a.m., Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, radio at noon, on Athens Sports Radio 960 The Ref, and as a podcast, wherever you find them, including the world-famous DawgNation.com. Just really glad to have you with us, and big thanks to our friends at Kroger for making it all possible. For me, I don't know if y'all feel the same way, but I always kind of view G-Day as like the last day of spring, and I kind of view like whatever the day after G-Day is, that's kind of the start to my summer. I don't know if y'all feel the same way about that, but I always kind of think of, in this case, it'll be Sunday, April 18th. To me, summer kind of begins on Sunday, April the 18th. No matter what the weather is that day, that's my summer in many respects. And of course, if you start thinking about summertime, great chance to enjoy all the things going on at Kroger here this summer. You can save on patio furniture, grills, outdoor fun. It's going to be a much better summer this year, obviously, than it was a year ago. A lot of reasons to feel that way. Fun in the sun here this upcoming season. Kroger is the place to go to find out more about this. In fact, let me give you a website. It's Kroger.com/summer. That's Kroger.com/summer. That'll get you ready for a great weekend and a great time here as we head towards a beautiful, beautiful time of year. Kroger.com/summer for more on all of that. All right, we have a very special guest in today's program. I'm not just talking about Georgia's recruiting insider here for DawgNation, Jeff Sentell. In addition to Jeff, who we'll speak to in just a couple of minutes' time, we're going to speak to Georgia Governor Kemp on today's show. Now, please have no fears about this. We're on a political show. This is not a political interview. But I did want to have Governor Kemp on for a specific reason. There's been a lot of questions lately to us on our program, our audience, about, hey, what's it going to be like? G-Day is still very much for Georgia like what last season was in terms of very few people in there. I know so many people trying to get G-Day tickets. Frankly, I wouldn't mind getting my hands on a few. I mean, there's just all kinds of frustration about the fact that so many people who would like to be at G-Day are not going to be able to be there. And there's, questions with the tailgate stuff. That was kind of weird for a lot of folks last year. And the one thing I keep getting, asked over and over again is, BA, is it going to be normal this upcoming year? Is it going to be full stands? Is it going to be tailgating? Is it going to be all that as we head towards the upcoming year? So we thought, why not go straight to the top? Try to get an answer to that question. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp going to stop by later on. He's going to tell us his thoughts about what he thinks the fall is going to look like as far as college football is concerned here in this state of Georgia. That's coming up. We'll also talk to Governor Kemp about his UGA fandom. He's got a long backstory with the Dogs. He'll tell us about some of that really funny stuff from him. Going back to his time growing up around Coach Dooley and obviously his fandom for the Dogs. We'll do a lot of that with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp coming up in just a couple of minutes' time. Before that, though, let's go around the doghouse here today. And the other big thing as you head towards G-Day on Saturday is related to what this event is going to be from a recruiting standpoint, both in terms of who will be here, who won't be here. We're going to do a lot of this with Jeff Sentell here in a couple of minutes, but let me give you a little bit of a preview for that. I guess one piece of good news is, and as I said before, the limited number of tickets for this event make it even difficult for recruits there as well, because obviously there's only so many tickets you can even get your hands on for something like this right now. But we start to have a little bit of a list of kind of who's going to be there. One big name we know, Georgia commit Jalen Walker, put this out on Twitter that he's expecting to be there on Saturday, giving you the push pin on that. So Walker, who's just a unbelievably magnetic personality. You love the fact that he's there, but any other recruits who might be in Athens for all of that, maybe getting a chance to bump into Walker, certainly that helps Georgia's cause because of the fact that Jalen is just such a big, enjoyable personality to be around. So that's really good news. UGA recruiting target Christian Miller, the defensive lineman, has also said he's going to be there, giving you the hashtag G-Day. Looking forward to that is Christian Miller. However, one of the names that's not going to be there on Saturday, or at least maybe interesting for where he will be instead, another big defensive line target, the defensive tackle, Mikael Williams, has put it out on social media that he is planning on being at A-Day in Alabama. Alabama going to give out its national championship rings, have a national championship celebration, and Williams is one of these guys, and this is interesting. I'm going to do more of this with Jeff here coming up in a moment. But Williams is one of those guys we heard about connected to Georgia for a long time, and I'm not saying that he's not as connected as he once was. I honestly don't know. We'll ask Jeff about that. But, boy, isn't it interesting that lately you've heard less about Mikael in Georgia, a little more about guys like, say, Travis Shaw, Walter Nolan, these like huge names. And I'm always kind of interested, you've only got so many ways in which you can kind of prioritize, the chatter about Shaw and Nolan and Georgia, is that doing something here related to Mikael Williams? I won't pretend to know that. We'll let Jeff Sentell tell us more about that all coming up in a moment. But it's obviously ahead of the opening of the dead period on June 1st. This is obviously one of those weekends going to find out, hey, who goes where, who's not anywhere, who's at Georgia. In this case, Mikael Williams being at Alabama. A lot to follow with Jeff Sentell when it comes to all of that. Before we do any of that, though, I am looking forward to being in Athens on Saturday. And every time I drive around Athens, I always love to look at the homes in and around the Athens community. It's just a reminder of what a great real estate market Athens is. And for many of you, you already know this. In fact, you're trying to move there. You either want to raise your family there, you want to retire there. Many of you kind of view this as a great investment opportunity. And obviously it is, just given all the students that are kind of in and around there. Also, the game day condo stuff, of course, is really big there now. And when you're getting involved in the Airbnb stuff is big there now as well. But when you're getting involved in the Athens real estate scene, it's really important to have a local expert there to help you navigate all of that. That's what my friends at Five Market Realty are going to be able to do for you. As I said before, whether it be an investment property, a game day condo, a retirement home, whatever it might be for you, Athens is a great place to do it. But you need someone who knows that area, and that's what Five Market Realty is able to provide for you. Also, it's fun to do business with Five Market Realty. They were on the 2021 Bulldog 100 list, so when you do business with them, you're working with fellow dog fans, and that's always something we encourage people to do here. The businesses that are friends of ours here at DawgNation, or those businesses that are just good dog people doing stuff for good dog fans, that's what Five Market Realty is kind of known for. So please check them out online. 5mrealty.com. That's the website. It's 5mrealty.com. That is the website on all of that. All right, great to have you with us on the program here today. Before we're done, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, he'll make a special appearance on our program. We'll also preview the other games happening around the SEC here this weekend in addition to G-Day. But for now, on everything related to Georgia, both in terms of who might be in Athens and everything else going on across the landscape. Let's do Jeff Sentell here right now. DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
Say hello to Jeff Sentell. Really good stuff from him at DawgNation.com, getting you ready for G-Day on Saturday. And, Jeff, I was just talking to our audience a moment ago about both who is and apparently isn't going to be in Athens this weekend. There's a temptation for me to start with the guy who's announced he's planning on being elsewhere. But for the sake of, I guess, positivity here, let me start with some of the guys who will be on hand, who've said on social media that's what they're planning on doing. I mentioned this, that Jalen Walker being there, he's put it on Twitter, that's what he's planning on doing. In addition to just kind of a nice thing for him to get a chance to, see the atmosphere between the hedges, even in kind of a limited environment, which G-Day is going to be. Big-time personality, a guy that people seem to enjoy being around. For other recruits who might be there, getting a chance to rub elbows with Jalen Walker, I would certainly say that helps Georgia's chances with anybody that Walker kind of comes in contact with. So for him and Christian Miller, some of the other guys who said they're going to be there, boy, I take that as pretty good news.
Yeah, good morning and happy Friday to everybody. And hey, man, congratulations on having the governor on your show today, man. That's something, man. It's crazy. Now everybody wants to hear from the governor, but I'm sure everybody wanted to hear from Mikael Williams about why he's going to Alabama and not Georgia this weekend. Well, really, Brandon, this is one of those rare instances, and you can dance the jig as I say this. This is one of those rare instances where Georgia can point to scoreboard on Alabama when it comes to visits. Georgia has maybe an early lead on Alabama where they have 2 or 3 visits to UGA for games already in the bank in 2019. And he's never been to Tuscaloosa. He's never been to T-Town. He's going to be there. Obviously, it's going to be these isolated, independent, can't rub shoulders with coaches, can't be face-to-face with coaches type visit. But he's going to Bryant-Denny. He's never even visited Alabama ever. So he needs a chance to kind of see what Alabama's all about. That's where he'll be. He'll be for A-Day on Saturday. But we kind of thought this was going to happen with Georgia and Alabama. These recruits have got to choose somewhere, and then they've also got to get tickets, which is another hard thing is keeping a lot of prospects that probably might want to be there from showing up in Athens. You did mention Jalen Walker, but I'm going to move his name right into I guess I would call it a circle of respect of the best linebackers Georgia's recruited in the Kirby Smart era. I think he belongs in that Noah Sewell, Nakobe Dean, that type of range. Throw Nolan Smith in there, of course, as well. Really elite playmaker. You got to love the fact that he wants to be an orthodontist outside of football, and he's wanted that dream for 10 years of his life already. He's the son of a college head coach, and the big thing about the Jalen Walker trip, aside from him having Travis Shaw with him, is it's not just a get in and get out visit. Jalen's going to spend the night with his family. He's going to start to put some of those roots down in Athens, and that, my friend, is a very good thing for Georgia's class in 2022.
So you just said something very interesting right there. When Jalen Walker comes, you say he's bringing his good friend and fellow North Carolinian, I believe that's how you say that, Travis Shaw with him, because that's certainly interesting news, the 5-star defensive lineman traveling with Walker to Athens. Is that what you're saying?
It's funny, Brandon. Sometimes you might have selective hearing, or that might have been my dog Peaches barking in the background whenever 5 stars come up when I'm on the phone. He will not be in Athens with Travis Shaw. I said the best news outside of having Travis Shaw in the building with him would be that he's actually going to spend the night and hang out and get to know Athens town a little bit better.
Yeah, because I started to say, if that was true, then you were certainly burying the lead. I apologize for misunderstanding that, but thank you for correcting the record on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I know that's probably selective hearing, which you hope you heard. Might have been muffled a little bit by my dog, our family dog Peaches barking in the background, but there will be, it's interesting to see a lot of the commitments in the class are going to be in town. They're going to be watching. Some of them are still trying to find tickets. I'd imagine if they show up in Athens town, they will find tickets. But, I think that's the main thing about the guys that will be there. There will be 5-star recruits in the building for Georgia to watch them play on Stanford Stadium on G-Day.
So it's funny that we actually started talking about Shaw because I was actually thinking about him a little bit too in relationship to this. And listen, I won't pretend to know exactly what's going on here, but there is a narrative that you can construct in your mind of, boy, for a long time we were hearing a ton about Georgia and Mikael Williams, and it seems like, I don't know, as of late we've heard a little bit less than that. Obviously, being in Alabama on Saturday for Mikael will raise some eyebrows about a big-time defensive lineman, yet concurrent to that, we've heard more about Georgia and Walter Nolan as of late, even if I'm somewhat skeptical of that. And, certainly more about Georgia and Travis Shaw on the heels of Jalen Walker's, commitment not too long ago. Jeff, do you connect the dots on this? I mean, the fact that Georgia is seemingly in business more with Nolan and Shaw than maybe at one point in time I probably thought they would be, is that impacting Georgia's recruitment of Mikael Williams, either in the way in which guys are being prioritized or maybe in the way that which Williams feels prioritized by Georgia? Do you connect dots there at all?
No, I don't think those dots are going to link up, at least in my mind's eye, Brandon. I think Shaw and Nolan have always been priorities along with Williams. I can recall, Williams hasn't even scheduled an official visit to Georgia or Alabama yet. I think he's only got 2 officials scheduled right now. Williams really didn't even have Alabama in his top group when we were talking about his decision prior to him, when he was still thinking about making his decision in March. I believe it was on March the 15th, right after Emmanuel Henderson's decision. So I think with him, I think Mikael is always going to be a priority for this class. I know he definitely feels like he's a Georgia priority in this class. I think Georgia's just really trying to, it's not preference or it's not angles, Brandon, I don't think. I think Georgia's really going to try and basically put everything they can into signing a defensive line class, that looks like Tyree West, that looks like Barry Alexander, that looks like, and then a name like Walter Nolan and Travis Shaw. And then they've got backups upon backups. There's names on the defensive line like Nanai White, out of Tyke Smith's home school in Imhotep Charter in Pennsylvania. There's KJ Miles, another name out of New Jersey. We keep going outside down the line. There are other bigger names like Shamar Stewart, another 5-star defensive end out of Opelika, Florida. Mikael Williams is in that group, but I would imagine, Brandon, the love quotient between Georgia and Mikael Williams, I'd say that that's still fairly robust.
Defensive line, Jeff, is kind of a funny position because there are some recruiting cycles over the years where, you could have fit every elite defensive lineman in the country on the head of a pin, right? Just some years there just aren't a ton of them because the fact it's such a specific kind of position. Big guys who are, athletic, more athletic oftentimes their offensive line counterparts. And yet in this 2022 cycle, you just rattle off so many names. You and I could do nothing but talk about defensive linemen every week and probably have plenty to talk about. It is really interesting how this year just seems to have more than its fair share of guys who are capable of playing at the level that Georgia needs these guys to play at. It ain't always that way in every recruiting cycle.
No, it's not, Brandon. I think there are years where positions are down. And I think offensive line, for example, this year, I think this is a very pedestrian group of offensive linemen compared to years past. There's no, gigantic Colossus type Titan name like an Amarius Mims or even J.C. Latham and other players like that just look like, okay, this guy would be a 5-star in any year, in any class, in any cycle. I think offensive line is down. I think defensive line is way up. The recent ESPN re-rankings where they evaluated the 2022 class, and granted they're not basically in the trenches and recruiting and watching these and evaluating these guys as much as the other services, like the job done by Rivals and 24/7. But Brendan, it was very telling. There was a top 10 defensive tackles on the ESPN rankings post that I think Big Bear Alexander tweeted out, and you had names like, and this is real talk here, Brendan. There was Walter Nolan on that list. There was Travis Shaw. There was Tyree West. There was Big Bear Alexander, and there was Walter Nolan. And Georgia was in that group, or in that top group, with almost all the names in the top 5, save for perhaps maybe one inside the top 6. And I think we said this on a show about maybe as long back as maybe a couple months ago, where I said, Brandon's going to look at me one time on one of these shows, and he's going to go, "Dadgummit, Jeff, that's enough with these 5-star defensive linemen. Can we get some more receivers on the board?" And Brandon, when did we ever think you were going to be saying, "All right, I'm going to push off the plate I'm going to push away from the table with all these defensive linemen, and I'm going to go get me some wide receivers for dessert. But that is the class. Create your own appreciation moment here for Travion Scott and Trey Scott and the job he's doing at Georgia. Fantastic group of recruiting he's doing, especially bringing all those guys in. Now, I will say this, Brandon. I don't think Georgia's going to get Nolan, Shaw, Alexander, West, Williams. I don't think they're going to get all those guys, but they're going to get a lot of those guys.
All right, there are some pretty key recruits on Saturday who won't be able to be at G-Day. I want you to tell us about that here coming up in just a moment, something you've written at the DawgNation Forum. Before we get to that, though, let me remind our audience, you've heard Kirby Smart kind of giving this call as of late, and tomorrow is the day that it all goes down. G-Day begins the week of giving for the UGA Alumni Association. So this is one of those moments which we're kind of calling all dogs. As I said before, Coach Smart has been out there on social media saying this. We've had the video on our site there as well. To make that gift to the UGA Alumni Association to help support the great work the University of Georgia is doing for the next generation of UGA students, and really all the things it's doing to make the world a better place there as well. So many of us are so proud as Georgians to have a university like UGA who's making such a significant impact. And the week of giving, which starts tomorrow, April 17th, and continues through April 23rd, this is your time to show that, to kind of put that on display. Couple great incentives for you there as well. For all UGA alumni who donate during the week of giving, you're going to get a 20% discount to the UGA bookstore. That's valid from April 15th to the 30th. So that's a great way to get a great incentive for your gift. And everybody who makes a donation is also going to get an exclusive set of UGA embroidered patches there as well. Cool collectible item to go along with all of that. So there on your screen, you see the website. It's Calling All Dogs. That's spelled DAWGS. CallingAllDogs.uga.edu. One more time, the website. CallingAllDogs.uga.edu. The week of giving for the UGA Alumni Association begins tomorrow. So, Jeff, there's a big 7-on-7 event you've reported. Forum.DawgNation.com is where I read this. You've reported. That means some of the guys that we would like to have seen in Athens, guys like Kojo Antwi, for instance, big-time wide receiver prospect for the class of 2022, we won't be able to see them in Athens tomorrow. Give us a little bit of a thumbnail sketch on that.
Yeah, so that's Hustle Inc., which is basically one of the most well-respected, best outfits out there in the Southeast and in the country. They're backed by Adidas, that group led by Tony Ballard. They're having a huge one-day tournament, 7-on-7 tournament at Greater Atlanta Christian, and that kind of soaks up a couple of key Georgia commitments and also a bunch of major Georgia targets. Now, the tournament will start in the morning, but I'm sure nobody out there is rooting for an early elimination for Hustle Inc., so maybe some guys could hustle over to Athens, Georgia for G-Day, but names like Marquise Groves Killebrew, that's the senior statesman commitment of the class, Gunnar Stockton, those two guys right there are active members of the Hustle Inc. program, and then that also includes some really interesting 2022 prospects like Oscar Delp, Georgia's longtime number one tight end target, Kojo Antwi. If you guys got down in the DawgNation Forum recently, you saw how Kojo's basically treating his recruitment like trying on Tom Ford suits because, man, he's obviously plays and competes in 7-on-7 locally with Gunnar Stockton at all these national and regional tournaments. So that gives him a good eyeball read and a good, let me see how this arm velocity and this ball spin feels for Gunnar Stockton. But he's also recently done the same with five-star Texas A&M quarterback commitment Connor Wagman. He went out to Houston area recently. He's got family in that area near College Station, and he got a chance to work out with Connor Wagman. And you got a kid like Kojo that's really doing his homework and not only setting up his official visits. He's the number 3 target in the class for me because of his ability. He has rare ability, and he also is such a local kid connected to Delp, connected to Stockton, top 100 receiver. He's checking out the quarterbacks and kicking the tires on those Testarossas, mind you, before he even goes and makes these important, vital visits in June. Lots of things happening this week, Brandon. I don't know if it's a lot to keep up with. The one-time transfer rule I know you've covered on your program. Yeah. Georgia, I don't know if this was something to trumpet from the heavens and celebrate, but some recalibration of math actually gave Georgia the number 1 recruiting class for this week on the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. They somehow closed the gap upon further review, and they're now the number 1 class. And then you also hear about the schools opening up on June the 1st. Some schools are planning camps. I don't know how widespread some of those mega camps will be, but it now appears that both June and July will be open for on-campus recruiting. So I would imagine a lot of these staffs, including the fine one at the University of Georgia, is going to figure out a way to cram a whole year and a half's worth of evaluation of prospect cycles together in about 2 months. A lot of stuff going on here, along with the aforementioned G-Day.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that unless G-Day brings some huge fireworks from a recruiting standpoint, I sort of envision our conversation next Friday when you're on this show kind of trying to just catalog all those visits that are slated to take place in June, because these things are kind of flying on social media all the time, and Georgia's obviously got the cool graphics to go along with all these official visits, and the players themselves good enough to share those out. But at this point in time, I kind of have sort of lost count with who all's coming in. I mean, those first few weekends in June for Georgia are just murderer's row of big names, and for even someone as adept as I am, and I say that kiddingly, but it's even hard for me to keep up with at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the dance cards are going to be pretty full. It's going to feel like the 27 Yankees batting order with a lot of these weekends. There's really dueling blockbuster weekends for Georgia. There's one that the aforementioned Jalen Walker will be a part of the third week of June, where it also feels like IMG and great defensive targets for the 2022 class, where the third weekend in June is going to have, I think, 5 members of the IMG national championship, defending national championship program in town. I would look for that to be a weekend where Jalen Walker would bring a guy like Travis Shaw along with him. And I did say that correctly that time, Brandon. Jalen Walker and Travis Shaw. That might be the weekend that those two guys. I figured you'd double down and say, like, okay, Jeff, is this truly a Walker-Shaw weekend? Let me know about that one.
You gave me the hard count a little earlier. You drew me off sides a little earlier on that hard count.
Yeah, good metaphor, by the way. But then, like, first weekend of June, and that's what everybody knows about by now, man, that's going to feel like that trip when we were all much younger people, Brandon, and our parents took us to Blockbuster Video. I guess we could plug a company that's no longer around, right?
Sure.
But like, I mean, you want to talk about all the new releases and the boxes being in. That's the offensive fireworks, vertical passing game weekend, Brandon. Let's coin it by the proper phrase. Stockton, Delp, Antwi. You should expect to see Branson Robinson there. You should expect to see Denylin Morissette, Addison Nichols. I think Christian Miller's even contemplating taking an official or an unofficial again that weekend. It's going to feel like Grand Central Stadium, Central Station. And Brandon, I got to tell you this, because this is going to be the how about that moment of this broadcast tonight, or at least today where you're talking to me. There's a guy, I got to share this story. There's a family, and this is a top 50 prospect. He's a tight end, 2023 cycle, so he hasn't really visited anywhere. They put out on social media, Brandon, that family is going to visit 26 schools in the month of June.
Oh, my God.
That's how crazy. 26 schools, and he's going to try and do things like Ohio State and Michigan in the same day, Notre Dame and Michigan State in the same day. There's a West Coast swing. There's a Florida swing, catching all those Atlantic Coast.
Honestly, that'd
schools.
be really fun. And I don't think that's probably the best way to figure out where you want to go to school. That's a lot of information in a short period of time. But can you imagine just going to visit? I mean, these are all great college towns, good meal in every place. The unfortunate thing is, after you visit 26 college towns like that in 1 month, he may not be an elite prospect when he's done. He may have gained too much weight because obviously there's a good restaurant or two in every one of those towns.
Breaking news, nation's number 5 tight end becomes nation's number 3 offensive tackle prospect.
He's going to be the next J.J. Pegues or whatever that guy is at Auburn that became a defensive lineman.
But the thing there is, it's going to happen with a lot of recruits and prospects. Now, I do think, Brandon, that's pretty much information overload with a guy trying to cram in that much detail as much as possible. But it was funny. I was having a conversation this week with Tyler Booker, a guy earlier this week who put Georgia among his final 5, the schools that are getting the final 5 official visits, said some very interesting things about Georgia football and the way it recruits the quarterback position and also national championship type level ability in classes. But Tyler Booker, who's got a ton of official visits scheduled in June, he's worried about making sure that waistline looks like an athlete because he knows he's just going to eat and eat and eat going on all these official visits one weekend after another.
All right, let me do one more thing before we let you go, and I'll just warn you before we do this. This is not news reporting. This is just, frankly, flat-out rumor mongering and maybe even me trying to wish something into existence. But I did mention on our show yesterday there had been some online chatter that Xavier Worthy, the Michigan wide receiver signee, was looking to get out of his letter of intent. And then, lo and behold, that's exactly what has happened over the course of the last 24 hours. And, I realized that I guess he's got a tie with Steve Sarkisian, and now Sarkisian's head coach of Texas, and maybe it's as simple as that. But, Jeff, I did, notice that Kendall Milton on social media also noticed the Xavier Worthy move here away from Michigan. And the last time we had some Georgia players, talking about a player on the move was, going back to the Tyke Smith situation a few days ago when Zamir White and, I guess it was Lewis Cine, whoever it was, that was kind of talking about that. And then, lo and behold, there was some smoke connecting to that fire. So is there any interest here at all? Any chance that this Xavier Worthy thing becomes a Georgia story and not just a national college football story?
Yeah, I mean, Brendan, I think Xavier had Georgia in his top 4, top 5 when he made that decision to go to Michigan. There's a few things that kind of just jump out to me here. Number one, I mean, here's what it looks like, Brandon. It's an inefficiency, I guess, of the Michigan program to capitalize on a player like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because, this guy was ready to enroll early. He had graduated, Brandon, in December, January, and then he couldn't enroll at Michigan. And then all of a sudden, things keep going on, and whether it's looking around or thinking about Alabama or thinking about Texas or whatever, he is now asked to be released from his national letter of intent. Brendan, I can't imagine. You get like 9 days worth of shows out of this if this would ever happen on the Georgia football recruiting sphere. And now Xavier, 10.55 in the 100, top 70 wide receiver, top 10 wide receiver. I mean, he definitely fits the profile of those Arian Smith types that Georgia wants to bring in to have home run hitters outside on the edge to really just supercharge the offense with what Georgia wants to be in year 2 under Monken. But I'm going to say this. I think the prospects of Georgia bringing in a Xavier Worthy would be a lot more enticing than them trying to find any other portal wide receiver that might become available or any, because we all know there's going to be some additions happening after spring practice. I think Professor Griffith was even talking about that on a lot of our shows and his shows going back months now. But Worthy is a guy that would be worthy of the Georgia's receiver room. That is a bad pun, but I had to share it anyway because it's accurate. If that happens, Georgia's wide receiver room would get a lot better. And really, what Georgia could do with Worthy would rival anything that they could do with the class of 2022 at wide receiver as well, except for maybe a similar type athlete in terms of Evan Stewart. It's the name that's very close to everyone's minds right now about Georgia wide receiver recruiting for 2022.
And I guess that's the other thing, too, is like if Worthy were to, go to Texas, maybe that does help, Georgia with that big name from the class of 2022 then, right?
Yeah, see, that's why I teed that one up for you, Brandon. I try to put the hurdles in your way so I know you can plow through them like Herschel Walker and former Vanderbilt defensive lineman back in the day. But let's say he goes to Texas. That's fine. Sarkisian will know what to do with a player like that, but that certainly makes Georgia look like an even more attractive option for Evan Stewart, considering that Texas added another weapon like Xavier Worthy to the arsenal. I think Georgia and Evan Stewart, that will probably be one of the major 5 remaining storylines for Georgia in 2022 recruiting. I know it feels weird because we're still in April and visits aren't happening until June, but I think Georgia's going to have to really find a jaw-dropping, incredible athlete at the wide receiver position for this class. And I don't know, we've kind of soft-pedaled this a little bit. We tried to go slow in the lane here a little bit, Brandon. But let's say this, the way the 2020 class is forming together, these defensive linemen we keep talking about, you've got a great cornerback, defensive back secondary potential happening here. Certain names fall in line. Georgia might have that 5-star quarterback ability and a gunner. They might have 2 really lethal running backs, guys out in the edge. I think, Brandon, all said and done, this could probably be one of Kirby Smart's top 2 or 3 recruiting classes if the right things shake out this year.
Yeah, it certainly has the look and feel of that, Jeff. That's really good stuff. Thanks for being here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger. I hope you have a enjoyable time this weekend. I think I have intel on this that you're going to be in Athens tomorrow, so hopefully we'll bump into each other there, and I will look forward to seeing you if I get a chance to, and, of course, back here again on DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger, very soon again as well.
Hey, Brandon, safe travels to you, safe travels to everybody in DawgNation, and let's have some fun this weekend in Athens town.
Sounds like a plan.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
So really good stuff, Jeff Sentell. By the way, we're about 5 minutes away from Georgia Governor Brian Kemp on a number of topics here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger here today. I hope I get to see Jeff tomorrow in Athens. Hope I get to see many of you there as well. And by the way, one of the places I certainly plan on being a lot tomorrow is at the UGA bookstore, both for our DawgNation postgame show when it's over. But don't forget, the UGA bookstore's got a lot of stuff going on here this weekend, both tonight and tomorrow, as a lead up to G-Day when it comes to gigantic autograph signings. We talked about Coach Dooley. He's going to be there both Friday and Saturday, tonight and tomorrow. It's 4 to 6 p.m. this afternoon, noon to 2 p.m. tomorrow, signing his books and there to greet Georgia fans. Also tonight, this afternoon, Ben Cleveland, Tyson Campbell, Mark Webb. We had Mark on the show a little earlier this week promoting his appearance, but from 4 to 6 p.m. this afternoon, 3 guys, a big part of the upcoming NFL draft. Ben Cleveland, Tyson Campbell, Mark Webb, all on hand. And then tomorrow, absolutely loaded autograph lineup leading into G-Day there at the UGA bookstore from 10 a.m. until noon. It's Azeez Ojulari, prohibitive favorite to be a first-round pick. DeAndre Swift, a true, beloved Bulldog and a member of the Detroit Lions. He's back in town. Always fun when the former Dogs get back in town. He'll be there. And then, of course, Richard LeCounte, a terrific former UGA player, also a beloved figure there as well from noon until 2 p.m. It's the UGA bookstore. It's right next to Tate Center, right across from the stadium. Phone number is 706-542-3171, 706-542-3171 if you want to learn more, or website, ugabookstore.com, ugabookstore.com. We'll be there after the game, so please come by and see us there. Boy, that's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, let me also do some SEC through stuff. Really quickly here, a bunch of spring games, but let me also say this. This is a gigantic weekend for UGA baseball. I mean, this is like just such a classic SEC weekend with all the football games going on. Georgia, Kentucky, obviously Diamond Dogs hosting the Wildcats here. But how about these two gigantic series? I'm going to do this for like 9 seconds, and then we'll get back to football. Tennessee Vanderbilt this weekend is a big deal. Vandy coming off the series loss to Georgia. Tennessee really better than they've been. So Tennessee Vanderbilt in-state rivalry there. But the one I can't wait, I'm so excited about this. With Ole Miss and Mississippi State playing this weekend, you got tickets there in the Magnolia State going for like $500 a game to watch the Egg Bowl of baseball. This is good stuff this weekend with some really good SEC baseball, in addition to what's happening, obviously, around the football stuff. And we talked a lot about G-Day. The other spring games, you got 7 total, including Georgia. Here are the 2 that I'm probably most interested in. And you could say Alabama on this. It's a chance to see Bryce Young. I guess I'm somewhat curious on that. I've said before that, to me, it's not an obvious yes that Alabama easily replaces what Mac Jones, what Devontae Smith, and what Steve Sarkisian and Najee Harris provided that offense a year ago. Chance to see Bryce Young on Saturday. I don't think John Mechie's playing in this game, and I think he's been missing for most of the spring for Alabama. So not the full firepower of Alabama offensively on display. It'll be curious to see what Alabama has after Bryce Young right now. In other words, is Paul Tyson, the great-grandson of Bear Bryant? Is he a capable backup in the way that Young would have been for Mac Jones this past year? But it's really not the Alabama game I'm most interested in. The 2 games I'm the most interested in this weekend are probably LSU and Auburn. I'll tell you why for LSU. I think we mentioned this on the show this week. The ongoing quarterback situation at LSU where Les Miles, I should say, did I say Les Miles? Ed Orgeron, the LSU coach, Ed Orgeron, has been fairly cryptic in his comments about exactly what's going on there between really probably 4 guys, although some people kind of wonder, is this more of a Max Johnson versus Miles Brennan thing here at the moment? Johnson was the guy who played well at the end of last season, maybe kind of viewed to be the favorite on this for LSU right now, but Brennan at one point in time was kind of thought to be the heir apparent, dealt with some injuries, and seeing all those guys, including Finley and the freshman Garrett Nussmeier, seeing what all those guys do in front of, watchful eye of media and fans and things like that, gives you a little bit of a window on what's going on there with the LSU quarterback situation, and is the door open for maybe somebody to say, hey, I don't really feel like I'm getting the love here that I want to, and maybe bolting out the door. Transfer portal for the LSU quarterback based on how the spring comes to an end. We saw, I think it was, 3 years ago, when Gus Malzahn, after the spring game, did whittle his quarterback competition from 4 down to 2. Does Orgeron do anything that honest when it comes to his quarterback situation after Saturday? We'll see about that. By the way, speaking of Auburn, that's the other spring game I'm, pretty interested in as you head towards Saturday. And it's really not so much what you see during the game, although seeing what Bo Nix does, the quarterback spot, and kind of, the offense that Mike Bobo is putting around him, that's somewhat interesting. The thing that I'm probably most interested in is when you look at certain spots in the SEC that have new coaches. Shane Beamer at South Carolina, I just don't think there's a lot of excitement about Beamer at South Carolina. I think there's, kind of that wishful thinking of, well, maybe things will be better than we thought they could be. And, Carolina fans are always kind of willing to buy in, but it's not very authentic in Columbia at the moment, I would say. And I think the same thing's true at Tennessee, where, I always say this, patience is a finite resource. Vols fans have given their patience to previous coaches who proved unwarranted. And right now, I just think that Josh Heupel is not dealing with much of a honeymoon there in Knoxville. I can't quite get the feeling for how Auburn fans are relating to Brian Harsin as of yet. Harsin's a better coaching prospect than either Beamer or Heupel are. I don't think that's not even up for debate. That's clearly true. But what is the excitement from Auburn fans for Harsin as he begins his first year? That, to me, is going to be an interesting thing to watch for as this spring comes to a close there at Auburn. So 7 big SEC spring games on Saturday. Obviously, G-Day, the main event in the eyes of our audience, but a lot to digest from the SEC right there. We'll make that your SEC through. And here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger, it's a great pleasure for us to have Georgia Governor Brian Kemp on the show today. We'll talk some Georgia football with him. But, Governor Kemp, first of all, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you being with us here today.
Hey, thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me. Go Dogs.
No doubt about that. Obviously, a lot of excitement about G-Day on Saturday. And I guess, Governor, if you don't mind to let us start this way, also some curiosity. It seems like right now we're kind of stuck between two worlds of what sports was like in 2020, in which, limited fans, not a chance for a lot of folks who like being between the hedges to be there, no tailgating. And yet now as we head towards 2021, you start to see some examples of sports starting to look a little bit more like normal again. The Braves are about to have 50% capacity as a for instance on this. What is your vision for what fall is going to look like here in the state of Georgia in terms of how many fans we might be able to see in Sanford Stadium? Will we be tailgating again out there again? What do you think the fall looks like around here?
Hey, look, I'm seeing a big light at the end of the tunnel, especially into the fall. I mean, I completely believe that we can be back to 100% capacity, tailgating, really back to normal. I want to encourage everyone to continue to get vaccinated. That is the best way for us to be able to do that and, not have any kind of post-spring break, early summer outbreaks that would put any of that into doubt. So I feel very confident about that. I know one thing that the Bulldog Nation can help me and a lot of our public health and medical people with is just encourage, especially that kind of 18 to 35-year-old to get vaccinated. There's still a lot of those folks that I think view themselves as invincible to COVID-19, and it's best for them, in my opinion, to get vaccinated. I'd encourage them to talk to their medical provider and consider doing that. And I certainly appreciate Coach Smart making that leap the other day and setting a great example for everyone. I
think I saw Dr. Toomey say this. The goal is 80% vaccinated by July 4th. Am I right about that?
Well, the one thing that's definitely the goal. I'd love for 100% to get vaccinated. I don't think that'll ever be the case. And we are seeing, Brandon, in the South particularly, a lot of vaccine hesitancy. The numbers are getting better, though, so I'm very encouraged by that. I think we just got to continue educating people and letting them know how safe these vaccines are. Obviously, there's been a pause with Johnson & Johnson for really a limited situation, so I feel like that will get resolved, but we'll let that play out. But for sure, the Pfizer and Moderna still available. We're still putting those shots in arms, and very effective and also very safe.
So a lot of folks know you are a big Georgia football fan, and some folks are maybe kind of aware of what your backstory is. I think it's really interesting for those who are not aware. You actually grew up spending a good bit of time with the legendary former coach and athletic director Vince Dooley. You were obviously good friends with one of his sons, Daniel. What was that like, whether it's, going fishing trips or, whatever else y'all were doing, kind of, being behind the scenes with a guy that many of us kind of only know from television?
Well, Coach Dooley treated me like I was, one of the Bulldog family and, the like part of the team a lot of times. Even when we were vacationing, he would come in there and wake Daniel and I up at 5 o'clock to go shrimping, and, it would make us clean the boat up when we got done. And so he was always a strict disciplinarian, but as a kid growing up, it's good to be around people like Vince Dooley and certainly our high school football coach, Billy Henderson, who played for Coach Butts. I'm actually going to be speaking at the Wally's Boys breakfast tomorrow.
Nice.
They have a loyal following. And I was kidding Lauren Smith the other day that I think Coach Henderson punished us in practices and other ways like Coach Butts punished them when they were playing. So he took some of that out on Daniel and I and a lot of other great people that we played with at Clark Central.
And, of course, a couple of years ago, you were also instrumental in getting the field renamed in Coach Dooley's honor there, Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium. That was something a lot of Georgia fans were really proud of because they wanted to see more, to honor 25 years as a head coach, time as an athletic director, national championship. Why was that important for you to also kind of be a part and, kind of maybe in some ways spearheading the effort to make sure that Dooley's name was affixed right there inside Sanford Stadium, a place where he had, really gotten so many wins over the years as Georgia coach?
Well, look, that was a great day in the history of Georgia football, and plus the university, too. I mean, Coach Dooley, I think a lot of people don't really realize, how much of an impact he had, not only on the football program, but just in athletics in general at the university, on women's sports, and really bringing the whole college sports experience and the educational opportunities for a lot of the student athletes to the forefront in the country, and really brought a lot of other institutions along with him. I mean, he was not only a great coach, but he was also a great athletic director, a great business mind. When you look at especially facilities at the University of Georgia, he was on the forefront of that whole movement that has gotten UGA and a lot of, especially the Southeastern Conference and other teams to the forefront of that movement, really took college sports to where it is. And you look now, just, what's happening in women's sports is incredible. And I think Coach Dooley really never got a lot of credit for that, and I think the field honoring is something that, we owed to him, and he certainly deserved, and I know a lot of people, including myself, felt like this needed to be done while he was still with us and could realize that and appreciate and let people show their appreciation. So it was a great day.
As Georgia governor, you obviously understand the role that leadership plays, and different kind of leader in our state is Kirby Smart, now about to go into his 6th year as Georgia coach. Gita on Saturday, a chance for many UGA fans to see him once again. What's your evaluation of Coach Smart thus far? And I know you kind of know him a little bit there as well. What do you think about the job that he's doing at UGA right now?
Well, I think he's doing an incredible job, not just with the program from a wins and versus losses perspective, but just his leadership on those young men. And, he's not only a great coach for the football team, he's a big supporter of UGA athletics and women's sports as well. And I think that is very important. And he's got a great family, and we're glad to have him in Athens. But, one thing I was thinking about, Brandon, the other day, a lot of the coaches, regardless of their records and what happened in their tenures and where they went afterwards or not, they all love Athens. They love the University of Georgia, and I certainly was privileged to know all of those coaches, from Coach Goff, Coach Donnan, certainly Coach Rick, and now Coach Smart, and obviously Coach Dooley. And I think it's a testament to really what the UGA program is and the university, just from the land-grant mission and what impact it's had on not just sports, but really our whole state in general, to position us where we are from a worldview as the best state in the country to do business, and our research and outreach and extension is incredible. It really affects daily lives every day here in the great state of Georgia.
You're obviously very busy as Georgia governor. How challenging do you find it to keep up with what's going on with the football program right now? And I guess with that in mind, what do you think about the upcoming season for these Dogs?
Well, I'm definitely very busy. I've been more busy than I ever have, especially in the middle of a global pandemic and dealing with everything that we have this last year. But I'm a pretty religious, quick observer in the mornings of DawgNation, so I try to follow a little bit what's going on. If nothing else, at least the headlines, and follow recruiting. And look, we got the players. We got to keep everybody healthy. I think that's one thing that hurt us last year in some of our bigger games is we had a lot of key people injured. So we need the good Lord to look after us and keep people healthy this year. We got the team and the talent, I think, to compete with anybody in the country if we do that. And I know they're preparing for that now. And looking forward to seeing some of that fruit on the field tomorrow at G-Day.
Well, Governor Kemp, I know it's a busy time for you. I really appreciate you stopping by to see us here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger here today. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on Georgia football, and we'll certainly look forward to getting a chance to speak to you hopefully again very soon as well.
Love to do it. It's going to be a great year. I'm looking forward to tailgating in college football this fall. Have a great day. Go Dogs.
Boy, that's certainly great news to be able to hear that. Here on DawgNation Daily, certainly great news to be able to hear that. The idea is, Governor Kemp says right there, back to normal, looking forward to a fun year for the Dogs on the field and for the fans in the stands and the tailgating around that off the field. Really excited about all of that. We certainly appreciate him being here, Governor Brian Kemp from the state of Georgia, to deliver that message for us here today. And, of course, a lot of that for Georgia starts on the field for G-Day tomorrow. Going to be a ton of fun. In lieu of giving out a golden shoe today, I do want to say this, that for everything that happens tomorrow during G-Day, to get the most coverage from DawgNation, one of the best ways that you can do that is by becoming a DawgNation YouTube subscriber. That means subscribe and obviously get those notifications sent to you when we go live. Turn that on. But for the Kirby Smart press conference, for all of the players that speak after the game tomorrow, for all of that information, get that on the DawgNation YouTube page tomorrow. Become a subscriber to make sure you get all of that. By the way, also, don't forget, Gator Hater Countdown, 197 days from right now. Georgia goes back to Jacksonville, get some revenge on those lousy, stinking Gators. Y'all enjoy G-Day. We'll see you back here Monday. DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger. We'll talk to you then, everybody. And on video. Time now for our R.S. Andrews Cool Down. Appreciate you being here and a part of everything we have going on. We were a little short of the comments yesterday. We have a little bit of time. The show is a little long today, but we have a little bit of time to take a few more of your comments. We'll kind of roll through and do a good bit of that. Let me remind you, R.S. Andrews, one that makes it all possible. Air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric. Find them online at rsandrews.com. The RS stands for Rapid Service. They show up on time to do the work that's promised, the price is promised, and this time of year, as I told you before, Sunday is sort of the unofficial start to my summer, which means you're thinking air conditionings, which means you're thinking about yours making its way through the hot weather that's on its way. Get your system tuned back up to factory fresh specs today so that you're ready to do just that. Find them online at rsandrews.com. All right, let's do a couple of comments here. See what's going on in the comment section. We'll do YouTube here first. I want to talk about the Georgia-Clemson game in the comment section today, and obviously that's one of the things that we've seen the Clemson spring game. I don't know that we learned a lot from that, other than the fact that Clemson had a very unfortunate injury during that game, and we'll get a chance to see what Georgia puts on display there tomorrow. But obviously, this is that next G-Day I'm speaking of, that next quarter pole you kind of have to go around to get ready for the upcoming start of the season here pretty soon. And so other comments. Kind of rolling in here as we continue to talk. And, listen, people talk about the politics, whatever else. I mean, look, when we have a chance to have on Governor Brian Kemp to do, what he did today, which is talk about his outlook for the upcoming season and some things along those lines, it's not a difficult decision for me. We're definitely going to bring on a figure of that magnitude, whether it be, Republican, Democrat, whatever else. That's just what we're going to do. And obviously, we're not going to do politics. That's not what we're going to do. We don't do that. But that doesn't mean that we can't talk to newsmakers, statewide officials, things along those lines. That's what we're going to do. Jim McLaughlin also says, speaking of that Georgia-Clemson game, one thing we know of for sure, we have no way of knowing who's going to win the UGA Clemson game. After the game, we should have a good idea of how good both teams are. It is very interesting when you have a measuring stick of that caliber near the beginning of the season. That's very interesting because I do think, and we've heard coaches and players talk about this before, that there is a level of focus that you get during that offseason. In fact, guys like John Stinchcomb and Terrence Edwards, they've talked about this before. They started their 2002 season, a season that ended with Georgia, being a one-loss team, winning the SEC. Had there been a playoff in 2002, Georgia would have certainly been one of the teams competing for one of those 4 playoff spots. And, those guys have told us that having that game against Clemson to start the year, Terrence Edwards has been very vocal about this, as a for instance, having that game to start the year gave a lot of energy to the offseason. So I think that's true for both Georgia and Clemson this year. And, talked about impatience off the top of the program today. There's also that kind of impatience at the beginning of the season to learn how good you really are. And, boy, you don't have to wait very long to find that out in a measuring stick game like what Clemson is able to provide. Now, that's not to say that either team couldn't make the playoff, after losing the game. Certainly for Georgia and the SEC, they've got every chance to be able to do that. But as we also talked about in one of our shows earlier this week, even if you have a chance to still be a playoff team after losing a game like that, the one thing you don't want to do is give away your margin for error so soon in the season. That's just not something you want to do. All right, a couple more comments here. Let me go over to Facebook here for a moment there as well. We'll be back over to YouTube here in just a little bit. Folks weighing in, looking forward to seeing G-Day. Matt Rukavina sounds like he's already got his vaccine, and it's nice to be able to see. I'm very thankful that so many of my family have been able to get it. This is one of those things where I'm able to kind of like be back in the same room with my grandmother again. And, she's in her 80s, and, just the peace of mind I have knowing that, she's had that, and, we're able to kind of be back together again and spend time with her. That's just been a really good thing for me. So I'm very grateful for that, and very grateful that so many other people are, looking forward to being in San Francisco Stadium tomorrow in this upcoming season because they themselves have had it. I mean, that's one of the things that did not really get enough attention back during, last season with all the, kind of battle lines of who felt this way and who felt that way related to that issue. Very quietly, I mean, there were a lot of people who, not, big polled political stance, but just, thinking better of the idea of being in the stadium last year. People who had the option of buying tickets chose not to. I think around 60% of the people who had the option of buying Georgia tickets this past season just decided they would rather be at home for a number of reasons. A little bit of hesitancy about being in public. You have to think factored into that just a little bit. And so this year, people able to make a decision in 2021 that they felt like they were not able to make in 2020. I think that's a really good thing. Reginald Johnson says he's fully vaccinated. I'm happy to hear that. That's good to know. My wife, after she got it, she was a little. She said she was a little under the weather for a few hours there, but other than that, everything is fine. Miriam Martin Corbin says, "I hope after we beat Clemson, we don't have a big letdown." Yeah, I mean, look, that's one of the reasons we talked about what we did yesterday. Of the analytics people at ESPN still expect to be Georgia challenged in games beyond just what's going to happen there at Clemson. So, you start looking a few weeks ahead after the Clemson game. I mean, depending on what Auburn does, I don't quite think Auburn's going to be very good. I don't see Auburn really as a top 25 team. But what if they were to, pull what might be a slight upset on the road at Penn State? Penn State, after all, wasn't very good this past year. Is it inconceivable that Auburn could win at LSU? That would not be my pick, but it also wouldn't be the most shocking result of the season. If that be the case, all of a sudden, is there a little more juice to that Georgia-Auburn game, knowing that Auburn's gotten a road win or maybe even two to kind of lead into that? So I understand the concern about as you said, describe it, letdown after the Clemson game, and emotionally there will be a little bit. Obviously, the UAB game week 2 feels a lot different than perennial playoff team like Clemson week 1, but this is one of those years in which Georgia, clearly needs to stay as focused as it can on every game that it's going to play. Randy Hall says, I still need to get that chortle button. Yeah, for sure. That's something we hope to get done. Randy's had a lot of good ideas, and he's good about reminding me when I don't follow through on them. A couple more Facebook comments, and then we will roll in here and get some more YouTube comments there as well. Lindsey Hardiman, going back to a topic from a little earlier, hoping to see Georgia games at 100% capacity this year. And, yeah, that's one of those things that's really important to me there as well. I've missed that. I think sports have missed that. I mean, across the board, the TV ratings for sports are lower significantly compared to where they were a year ago. In some cases, like 25% down. And I would not have predicted that, right? I mean, if we were to go back and think, back last spring when we had no sports whatsoever, that anything that felt like normal, we would just be thankful to have whatever we could have. And I think many of you probably were there as well, but the numbers bear it out that for some people last year just didn't feel like a real sports year. And I think the absence of fans were a part of that. So even if you're not one of the fans that would be looking to go to games, things like that, I think there was something about the TV viewing experience was made different, and I would say in some cases worse by not having those fans. And I feel that way watching the other stuff too. It's like, you tune into these like NBA games, you got like the big tarps there on all the seats, and it just feels so antiseptic not having those cheers, those roars, the way that we're used to. There was less of that at Augusta. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know that I definitely don't view the November Masters as a true legit Masters. That'll always have an asterisk in my mind, and there is a sense in which this past weekend's Masters will always kind of have an asterisk in my mind there as well, because for as much pressure as Matsuyama and Schauffele and those guys were dealing with, the pressure would have been magnified even more had you had the true roars every time a good shot was made, or the tension that just the crowd adds to when a bad shot takes place. This was not the same kind of Masters without those fans, and so obviously you're hopeful that as you head towards the fall, you have a lot more of that. More on YouTube here for a moment. We'll get ready to roll out of here after that and get your weekend started. All right, let's see what else is going on. Jordan Bowman obviously talking about his Clemson Tigers over here. Yeah, man, that's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a lot of fun. Jim McLaughlin, I don't know what he's talking about. Massages at halftime. All right, so a lot of stuff kind of rolling on here. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what the YouTube people are even talking about because they're fighting with each other so much. D-Mart 40. Yeah, Jordan Bowman actually talking about letdown, saying a letdown's going to happen during the Clemson game, specifically at halftime. Yeah, I don't know about that, Jordan. I don't know about that. Foster Moss, looking forward to seeing you at G-Day there as well, Foster. Thanks for checking in. Appreciate that. Looking forward to seeing you. Brody Miser says, well, we wear black against Clemson. Got to get the hype going early. That's pretty interesting. I'm assuming it'll be a night game. If I had to guess, black can be a little hot there in early September, especially in Charlotte. But I guess we'll have to see. That might be interesting. Brody, that's kind of an interesting idea. Thomas Tyson. I always like it when YouTubers and Facebookers kind of go back and forth with each other. Thomas Tyson giving a shout out to Matt Rukavina. Funny thing to see. D-Mart fighting with a Dirt T-Dog over here. G. Grace Bama Boy checking in. G. Grace, what you think about the A-Day game on Saturday? HR picking stuff, wanting to see something from Arian Smith on Saturday. Yeah, that's one of those very curious, interesting names for sure. Silent Chaos on the subject of the UGA defensive back, saying they're going to be challenged more than any position group on the field, but not as challenged because of the wide receiver injuries. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've been hearing throughout the spring that the offense has had the advantage of the defense. Well, if that be the case, then even with the injuries that wide receiver have been dealing with, you would kind of expect the Georgia defensive backs to be put in a little bit of a tough spot tomorrow. And I just think that, when you're not doing exotic coverages and defensive schemes, things like that, I think it makes the job tough for the defense anyway. So, I mean, look, to a certain extent, I'm, fairly predictable and stuff like this. Obviously, I'm rooting big for the defense in games, against, Clemson and all throughout the season. But for G-Day, I'm, for the most part, rooting for either offense when they're on the field. I just want to see the offense do well because it just makes for a better show. So the one thing I promise I will not do, I don't think there's going to be like 8 touchdowns scored on Saturday, but if there is, I'm not going to come on this show and do the woe is me, the Georgia defensive backfield's in a lot of trouble. I will not be doing that. I will be doing, just some kind of general fun related to who does find the end zone and who does have the big plays, but we're not going to condemn the Georgia defense if the offense scores on Saturday. If anything, that's kind of what I hope to see because I think it makes for a better show. William Perry says, will Justin Robinson play? I believe that's my understanding that he will play, and I think that's one of the names, William, that I think most Georgia fans are looking for to hopefully see some good stuff from. We've heard nice buzz from him this spring. I hope that's you get a chance to do that. Jay Shipes. I'm not even sure what to do with that. HR picking stuff, also excited about Jamari Salyer. That's going to be a lot of fun. A couple more here on Facebook. We'll get ready to go. And now the folks over on Facebook are kind of fighting a little bit too. Chase Barbie says, should be nothing but happiness for dog fans. Tomorrow is G-Day. Boy, you better believe that. Travis McCullough says, I missed the tailgating. And yeah, you and me both. It was so weird last year. A couple of times, like the first game of the season in Fayetteville was really weird because that was the first time any of us experienced any of this. It was just so quiet. It was almost like walking around a university campus just on a random day in the summer where there was just nothing going on at all. And like the Auburn game for Georgia, which was its first home game, it felt like just kind of a mini version inside the stadium of what a normal game would be. But you saw a lot of, a lot of the security personnel outside the stadium was pretty strict, to be honest with you. For instance, they were, coming up to you about putting a mask on when you were outside, which was something I don't encounter very much other places. Not letting people, kind of put their chairs down, things along those lines. So, it was a very unusual environment outside the stadium before the games a year ago. And obviously inside, many of you saw that there as well. And then even weirder when you got late in the season, where it'd be a little bit cold, you didn't always have great weather because there was you could almost see no one in Athens prior to the start of the game. The Mississippi State game was a little bit like that. Just very, very strange all the way around. So hopefully that's where we're heading for, something different on that front here for this year. Gerald Harmon says, will Dominic Blaylock play on Saturday? No, Dom not quite ready yet, but you hope that he'll be ready soon, but not quite ready yet. Lindsay Hardiman, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. Neil Calvino liking the idea of the chortle button. All right, we're going to get ready to go. So a lot of you look like you're kind of vaccinated over here on the Facebook side of things. Appreciate you being here on DawgNation Daily presented by Kroger. Big thanks to you for also being a part of the R.S. Andrews Cooldown. Make sure you check out R.S. Andrews online, rsandrews.com for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric needs. They show up on time. They do work that's promised, the price that's promised. You can find them online at rsandrews.com. Also, make sure you check out the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, ajc.com. Hawks last night, nationally televised game. Aftermath of all that, Braves finally found a win yesterday afternoon, too. They started a series in Chicago this weekend, afternoon game today up there at Wrigley Field against the Cubs. Falcons getting ready for the draft. We said this yesterday. I think in a lot of ways the draft, I don't want to say it begins with Atlanta at 4. It probably begins truly with San Francisco at 3. That's our first spot of any drama. But Atlanta holding the fates of so many other teams that draft after it in its hands with whether or not it wants to take Pitts or trade that pick or go quarterback, whatever it wants to do there. Atlanta is really a fascinating team, even outside our kind of local footprint here. Atlanta is a really fascinating team. We did talk about some of the vaccine rollout stuff, ambitious goals here for the state of Georgia. I think 5 million total vaccine doses have been given out. 3 million folks in Georgia have gotten both first and second vaccinations. So there's more of the obviously the hard news, the coronavirus stuff there, and the vaccine stuff online, ajc.com as well. Make sure you check out the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for all that. Of course, big weekend preview there as well. That's always a fun way to find out about all things. In addition to GJ, they're going on in a great state here this weekend. Y'all have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday. DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger. We'll look forward to talking to you then.